Hello and welcome to the EV Groups Nexus meeting number 3. It's growing and getting better and better. I'm Charlie. I work for Octopus Electric Vehicles, and we partner a lot with the EV Groups Nexus because we feel that the best people for you to learn more about electric cars from are people that actually own them. So I'm going to hand over to Neil, who is a real EV owner, and everybody that's on the call today is a real EV owner as well. And that gives you the chance to ask as many questions as you want to these people and learn more about what living day-to-day life is like with them. Neil, I will hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Charlie, and thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the third session. I think it's going to be a good one. We've got a great panel. We've got a great guest. I'm Neil. I run Sussex EVs with my wife Leanne and Warren and Nigel. I'm also one of the founding members of the EV Groups Nexus. So I shall now move on to John.
Hello, I'm John Brooks. I run Kent EVs along with Steve Green. I'm also one of the founding members of the EV Groups Nexus with Neil, and I drive a BMW i3. And for those who don't know me as John Brooks, I'm Beardy McBeardface on Twitter.
Thank you very much, John. Derek.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Derek Riley, and I am the founder of the Dublin EV Owners Club here in Dublin, Ireland. And I don't drive an EV, which is an unusual one. I'm a big advocate and ambassador, but I am able to use public transport to get to work at the moment. I have a couple of dream cars, but at the moment, I'm just a huge ambassador for electric vehicles. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Derek. Leanne.
My name's Leanne Roberts. I am one of the co-founders of Sussex EVs and also an admin on the Southwest EV Owners Group, both clubs part of the EV Groups Nexus, and I drive a 24 kilowatt Nissan Leaf.
Thank you, Leanne. Elle.
My name's Eleanor Chalmers. I'm one of the directors of the Electric Vehicle Association Scotland, and I've been known to do the odd tweet under the name She's Electric. And I drive a 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf.
Thank you very much. And now on to our guest today. So many of you will already have heard of Beth. She's the sporting director for the ERA Championships. She also did this very exciting trip up to the Arctic Circle in a Tesla Roadster recently. I'd just like to introduce you to Beth Lily Georgiou.
Hi, I'm Beth, and as you've already said, I'm the sporting director of ERA Championship, which is the entry-level electric Formula Racing series. But I also have been an EV owner and advocate for quite a few years. So many of you will see me on social media doing kind of stupid things, unadvisable things with electric cars, all in the name of fun and promoting clean and good way to transport ourselves around.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So we're going to move straight on to our first question, which is, are all ERA cars identical, or do the teams have the ability to customize them?
So this is a really exciting question, because one of the things that I'm most proud of about our series is the fact that we run with dual classes. So this means we run 2 classes of entry sports class, and this class is where teams can buy a ready-to-race, fully kitted out, complete vehicle. You buy it, it drives. There's very minimal things that you do modification-wise when you put it on the track, just things like setup, etc. But we also have a class called Innovation Class, where teams essentially get the rolling chassis, sub-chassis, and then they are able to build within that their own battery, their own motor, within quite a set of strict regulations. Obviously that's important, but it gives them quite a lot of freedom to put in their own technology. And that was a big thing for us, is allowing EV car companies, startups, these SMEs that are in our space right now to use their own technology and showcase that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Next question is going to be from John.
It's from me. When did you start your racing career, and what got you into motorsport originally?
So I grew up quite near to Silverstone, which is probably where it all started. And then in my teens, I went to school quite near to the track. And at the end of the day, I used to walk to Silverstone and kind of go like this at the fence and see what was going on. And I did that quite a lot, and then realized that I could actually volunteer and start getting involved in the sport myself as a teenager. So that's kind of where it kicked off, probably about 15 years ago now. Alongside many other extracurricular activities I did. And then from there, I really got into specialized marshalling, things like this. And I really wanted to get into race direction, stewarding. I really wanted to tell off racing drivers for doing bad stuff. So it kind of grew from there. And eventually when I started looking at electric vehicles, when they were kind of emerging, and I saw them for the first time on track years and years ago with student cars, I was just amazed. And I just went, the electric cars are what I need to work on. And I jumped on it very early on, started learning about electric vehicle safety and that side from a track perspective very early on, when people weren't really interested, and kind of jumped the gun. And it was a good move for me, I think.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next question is from Leanne.
I know it's not a question, but I would love to hear perhaps an abridged version of your story to the trip to the Arctic Circle. What brought it on? What was it in aid of?
It started with, I think, a chat in a pub, as all good ideas do, where we were looking at doing another crazy thing with electric cars. I'd done quite a few different trips before. I'd done UK to Monaco to France to 11 different countries in the space of 2 weeks or something. And this was back in the early days with my i3, and it was tough then. It was before we had real decent charging networks, and we were thinking of something else to do. And Nordkap always really appealed, because obviously it's the most northern point of Europe and it's exciting. And when we thought about it, it made sense, because it's a very coastal journey, and we wanted to look at how we could get like the talk about oil spills and plastic pollution and all of these important stuff, and get that involved into the EV conversation. But obviously this journey had been done before, and it's actually quite easy to do that journey if you're doing it in a Tesla, because the Tesla network goes all the way up to the top. So if you're doing it in a Model S or indeed a Model 3 now, it's quite a doable journey. So we're like, we need to make it more difficult and do something no one else has done before. So we decided to do it in 4 different electric cars. So we did it in an i3, a 30 kilowatt Leaf, the Model S, and then the Tesla Roadster, which is kind of the difficult one, because it doesn't charge using the traditional Tesla network. It has its own network that doesn't exist anymore, so it's an absolute pain in the ass to charge. So we did that. I think it took us like 38 to 40 days in total. Charlie was there. It was stressful. It was really, really tough, but it was good fun, and we learned a lot about the network and the high points, the low points, the capabilities of the cars, the things that are difficult. I hit some really bad weather on the way home and injured myself. It was all dramatic, but really wonderful, and we managed to come back with a lot of interesting data and a lot of knowledge from that.
Thank you.
Okay, over to Elle.
Beth, am I right in saying that the chassis of the ERA cars is Japanese? Is that right?
Yeah, so the ERA chassis is from a Japanese manufacturer called Dome, and they manufacture a lot of the Formula racing cars and involve a lot of motorsport in Japan. So what's really exciting about that is that we're actually the first series in Europe to be using a Japanese chassis.
So about saying went there. So how did that collaboration come about? And I'm guessing you enjoy your trips to Japan.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's quite cool, because I've always been a huge fan of Japanese motorsport. Japanese motorsport's been one of my big motorsport loves, and we were looking at different options for the chassis, and we explored many different possibilities, but in the end, the Dome chassis made the most sense. It's It's a great product. It's very lightweight. They're doing a lot of interesting explorations with us as well, with using material, with using flax, like really cool sustainable things. And we just thought it would be a really great way to bring some Japanese motorsport over here. But also, as we're a regional series, but with the global platform, there's no reason why we won't have a series in Japan in the future, or anywhere else in the world, for that matter. So it was a partnership that was very exciting for me personally, and they're really brilliant to work with. They're fantastic.
Cool, thanks very much.
Okay, Derek has a question.
Beth, you started off with a BMW i3 and now
Yeah.
you're driving a Tesla Model S. What are you most excited about EV-wise in the passenger car sector over the next 5 years? What have you got your eye on, or what's exciting you?
This is probably a really, really boring answer, but I'm really excited about more second-hand EVs becoming available, because my Model S is a second-hand Model S. It's 5-6 years old now, and I've had a couple of Model S's now that are all really, really old, and I've like thrashed them. And this one I've had since last January, and that's really, really exciting for me, because you know, I've very rarely in my life, I think I've never in my life had a brand new car that I've bought for myself, as most people my age haven't, and I'm looking forward to when EVs are much more. Obviously there's lots of brilliant secondhand EV dealers right now, but I'm looking forward to when, you know, in 5 to 10 years time, like all the cars of today are also secondhand. So it's not a particular model, but I think that's going to start to be really, really cool when there's just more and more secondhand EVs out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to make a massive difference
Yeah.
when there's just commodity EVs on the market. So your average person who perhaps does 30 miles a day, they could get away with a sub £5,000 Leaf or a Gen 1 Zoe. Just having that option, I think, makes a massive difference.
It's going to make the prices really interesting. That's kind of exciting. I'm just really excited for that. EVs everywhere.
That's cool. Now, you're not only interested in electric cars, are you? There's also another big love that you have. And I wanted to know, have you been able to create any new compositions during lockdown?
Well, at the start of lockdown, the thing that I was like, yeah, I finally can actually sit down and work on all these music projects that I've been doing. And then I got coronavirus, which, well, I'm laughing, but it really wasn't fun and it absolutely wiped me out. So I did less than I wanted to, but I'm currently working on some tracks with somebody I've collaborated a few times before, a friend of mine called Yellow Six, and he's a brilliant post-rock guitarist. So if you don't know post-rock, go and listen to some post-rock. So we're working on some interesting ambient electronic string guitar things that's hopefully going to come out later this year. And I'm also working on another music project in Germany that's going to happen in the next few months as well. So I'll probably be posting more about music and annoying all my people that just want to hear about electric cars over the next few months.
Brilliant. That's great. Thanks. Over to John.
Oh, me again.
Yes, it's you again.
I have to apologise for the motorsport questions, because as you probably know, Charlie's involved with motorsport. I have a bit of a history with motorsport, so it's sort of still, though I love electric cars, I still have a big interest in it. So what were your motor racing highlights?
It's a difficult question because there's a lot. I think last year, or early last year, when I first saw the ERA car run on the track, for me, obviously it was very private and closed and not open to the public because it was our first test and it was for team members only. But it's kind of like seeing your baby in action, so that was really good. But for me, finally going to Japan and seeing Suzuka was a real big deal. And earlier this year, I was in New Zealand and I got to see Pukekohe circuit, which is like an absolute legendary old school circuit. And being there in person was really, really exciting. other than that, anything to do with touring cars. I know it's not electric, but back in the day, touring cars was what really brought me here. And I used to drive before EVs were an option. My first kind of proper car in my late teens was a Honda Civic, just because I love the touring cars. So it's always been a big inspiration for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing some electric touring cars one day as well. Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to electric touring cars, because I used to spend a huge amount of time at Brands Hatch, and touring cars up there. It was just probably my favourite weekend. So seeing electric touring cars will be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, also I'm quite tall, as I talk about a lot. So I'm not really, if I'm actually going to get in a car myself, which I rarely do, to be honest, because I prefer to boss the drivers around. But if I am going to get in a car myself, then tin tops some more suit the fact that I'm 5'9" and not really small enough for Formula racing.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we go over to Leanne.
If you could convert any car to electric, what would it be?
This question is a really good question. I keep getting asked this. I think recently I settled on a DeLorean, just because I think it would be fun. And it's been done as well, because there was one at Fully Charged. So I suppose I'd just steal that, because it would be really cool and hilarious and 80s and old school.
Yeah, I have to agree. That would be a brilliant car. Either that or a 1980s Volkswagen Scirocco, which is obviously very similar.
I think if any car lends itself to screaming, "Convert me to electric," it's a DeLorean.
Isn't it? I know. Yeah. It's just so iconic, because I mean, the thing about an electric conversion is you can't think about a car in terms of what you like about it as a combustion engine car. So that rules out quite a lot of classic supercars, because you're maybe really driving it for the feel of the combustion engine, and that's okay to talk about. So it might as well be the car that just looks perfect for it, which I think would be a DeLorean. Although saying that, I did many years ago, before it became cool with the royal family, get to try the E-Type 0 at Jaguar Classic, and I wasn't sure what I was going to expect going into it, and I don't really have a huge amount of experience with classic conversions, but I was blown away by that car. In electric form, it was perfection. So I'm really down with electric converted classics.
Yeah, I mean, my everybody knows I would love a Series 2 Land Rover converted. And I was really lucky at the beginning of the year to drive a converted Series 2. And having driven lots of Land Rovers, again, I was just blown away by the electric version. Just amazing car to drive now.
I'll tell you a car I would really like to have converted, and that's a Porsche Speedster, or probably for a lot less money, one of the kit car versions. So a Chesil Speedster converted to electric would be absolutely phenomenal. I'd love that. Anyway, on to the next question, which is from Elle. So
as another fellow tall EV driver, an electric pickup would probably suit us both well. So are you on Team Rivian or Team Cybertruck? And if you had either, where would you drive it to?
Like, this is really divisive. It's a tough one. I'm leaning towards, at the moment, Team Rivian. So like, some of you are now going to hate me, which is fine. Like, obviously I drive a Tesla, so it's not that I don't love the Tesla as well, but the Rivian is actually the only one I've seen in the flesh as well. So I kind of have a better feel for what it is. And if I was going to drive it somewhere, I'd probably drive it. I'd probably drive it the furthest distance that's drivable, which I assume must be from the UK all the way to, I don't know where, UK to Vladivostok, should we say? That's fun. That would be cool. I'll do UK to Vladivostok. I really want to visit Vladivostok, so I'd do something crazy with it.
Cool.
Actually, that's not far from Japan as well. Maybe I could then take a boat to Japan. I'll drive it from the UK to Japan. There we go.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I need my co-pilot.
Brilliant. Okay, next one is from Derek.
The ERA Cup for school pupils. Tell us more.
Oh, so this is really exciting. As We're looking at getting a lot of young people engaged with electric vehicles and also STEM education, which is obviously a really important topic. We need to get more young kids into engineering, where most of Europe and probably most of the world are really, really short on engineers and science people. And so this is really exciting project for us. So we've launched a kit that schools or even just enthusiasts can buy and then build, and then within their region have little races with their cars. So they're obviously not road going vehicles. They're purely kind of designed for their purpose, but it's a great project for these kids to get their first hands-on experience in running a real racing team and building their own car that drives all out of the box. So it's really exciting.
Thank you.
Is there any chance that the car could become road legal?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. It's not fast enough. It's designed, the age group that it's aimed at is 14 to 21. So it needs to be safe for 14-year-olds to drive, and it's only got a little battery and a little motor. I mean, it's good for what it is, and it will be good fun. And I think hopefully it will draw kids into motorsport and the world of electric vehicles from a younger age. But no, it's not road legal. It's a hobby car. You can build one, John. You can build one in your garage.
I was more thinking something that Charlie and I have been talking about getting kids into EVs and maybe renting a track and getting a few.
Yeah, that's exactly the purpose. We've already got the program running in Belgium and the Netherlands. So those some schools within those regions are already building their cars. Unfortunately, because of coronavirus, they can't race this year. So we've pushed everything race-wise for them to the end of the next school year, because they're obviously not at school. And by then, hopefully, we'll have UK teams and a few other countries involved as well. And they'll race within their own regions. In a kind of knockout series. They do kind of 15-minute races, but they do several, and then they get points for those races, and it's good fun. And the car is safe and robust and easy to build. I say it's kind of like an IKEA car. They just have to follow the instructions, but it is a little bit more complicated than that. They get to design things like the bodywork and systems like that themselves, which is nice because they can look at recycled material. And the car that we use to demo in-house, that we've got the bodywork on it, is all built from old pitbull signage, because our company, our overarching company, is also a Le Mans racing team and Porsche racing. So we've got a lot of these kind of signs left around with car numbers and drivers, and we decided to use that and actually just recycle the scrap that was sitting around. So it's really cool.
3D printed body shell.
Yeah, why not?
Before we move on to the next question, I do have one quick question related to this. Are there any racetracks around where you can actually see one of these cars, or perhaps even have a go in one?
Not at the moment, unless you're near our headquarters, but that's something we're looking at the moment. I mean, unfortunately, like most of the motorsport and automotive industry, we've ground to a little bit of a standstill earlier this year, and we've just been allowed to go back to work, not this week, but the week before, in Belgium. So we've had to totally shut up. Anything to do with cars was closed, obviously, sensible. So now some of our technical people are just going back. So we're kind of emerging from our turtle shells and starting to make things happen. But it has put a big delay on everything from a motorsport perspective. But we do have now the capability of doing things. So if you watch out on my social media channels, we're planning to start doing some testing that we can be able to film and things and put public whilst we still can't all obviously meet and see things live.
Just a reminder for the viewers, your social media is Fox Georgiou?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's the same in every platform, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
I'm going to shift this back to a music question. Hope you don't mind. So what is your biggest inspiration from a musical style perspective? What do you feel most affinity with?
It's a really difficult question, I think, for a musician, because obviously every musician has their own voice, and if you're like me and you've been studying music from a really young age, I started playing violin when I was 9 or so, 8 or 9. There's been so many influences that it's hard to pinpoint one. Obviously, I grew up with a very classical music background, so obviously there's a lot of violin concertos that are very close to my heart. But actually, in my kind of very early teens, I got really into metal and electronic and trance and all this crazy stuff. And I realized that actually I wasn't just a classical musician. I was so much more than that. My probably, if anybody asks me what's my favorite musician, it's Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails fan. So I'd say that, but you know, it can depend day to day. I post a lot of music on Instagram, so just look on my Instagram if you want some music recommendations.
Excellent, brilliant. Thank you for that. I think we'll get back onto cars now. So I believe the next person is John.
Oh.
It is.
Okay. We all know, or most of us know, a year or so ago you were involved with E-Rod. I've not actually seen much of what's gone on with E-Rod. Do we know what's happening with them? Are they still about, or?
Yeah, they're still about. So I worked with them to get their car over to the UK to test the market to see if it was something that they could potentially look at bringing to the UK. I think due to various different homologation rules within Europe, it didn't make sense anymore to focus on external outside of Swiss scales. It's all complicated, and I don't know the ins and outs of import and export within Europe from Switzerland, but it was just too difficult at the time for them to look at mass export to the UK, and I guess probably Brexit's part of that as well. I would hazard a guess. I don't know. It was just a bit difficult and maybe the wrong timing, but they still exist, and you can go in Switzerland and you can rent them, I think, as well.
Okay, cool. Because I quite like them. You know,
they're wicked fun. Yeah. It was really, really great to bring it over. So far, I don't think any more have been brought over, but it was a good test of the market and to see if there was interest. And there's plenty of interest. So just for their company as well, it's not their priority vehicle. They mostly sell functional vehicles for post delivery and things like that. So it's just kind of a fun project on the side, and it didn't make sense at the time. There's every country's got their different homologation. Actually, in the UK, we can put a lot of different things on the road that aren't legal in Europe, but it's tricky to manage every country. And obviously, we're right-hand drive, and in Europe it's left-hand drive, and there's lots of different changes that need to be made to make a car fit for the UK.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, over to Leanne.
This question comes from iPace Owner on YouTube, and it's: the sadly cancelled iPace Trophy series has already had a direct impact on consumers' vehicles, with it having led to a 30-mile increase in this particular person's range. What impact are you hoping for?
Well, the big impact for us as a series is that we want to be accessible and affordable, and that's something at the moment in the EV sphere in motorsport that doesn't exist. So that's kind of the biggest thing for us, is that we want to be able to get young, talented drivers in our car to showcase why they're potentially capable of one day going into, whatever Formula E, whatever other series are out there, as well as a lot of the businesses involved in the EV sphere are not huge businesses, because we're quite a new industry, electric vehicles. So a lot of these businesses don't have huge budgets to participate in big budget motorsport, which, let's face it, it's a big budget sport. So we want to provide a platform for those people and those drivers to be able to showcase their tech without forking out like real big motorsport level money.
Sounds fair. At the end of the day, you want to get as many young people in as possible.
Yeah.
And I think as time goes on, parents don't have the budget to help them out with that.
Motorsport's extremely expensive, and obviously, even if you look at we're doing, if you think about it compared to your road car, it's a lot more expensive. But in the world of motorsport, it's ridiculously affordable, and that's been the biggest challenge for us. Like most difficult thing you can do in the EV world right now, anyway, we've discovered, is to try and make things as cheap as possible, and still be really, really decent and quality, because it's really easy to say, I'm going to build this amazing, super crazy hypercar, magical super beast that's going to do a million zillion miles and be amazing, and our budget is millions and millions and millions. That's the easy part, but the difficult part is saying we're going to build something that does what it says and you can afford it, and that's really, really difficult. So we set ourselves a difficult task, and achieving it was a big kind of career achievement for me.
Thank you.
Just out of interest, what sort of cost would somebody be looking at to enter your series?
It's difficult, because obviously there's a lot of logistics costs involved with entering the series, but for a complete sports class car that's running, driving, has everything included, you're looking at early €100,000-esque for the car and for your first season entry, which is motorsport terms really, really, really affordable. We're looking at, if you're comparing to combustion car series, I think that's on par, if not slightly cheaper, with Formula 4 entry. So
yeah, most definitely. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is slightly off topic again, and it's from Elle.
That's not
Elle.
Elle.
Mute.
Always helps. The joke, you think I'm blind by now. So what would you say, what links are there between veganism and driving an EV?
Well, both things make you awesome. No, well, there's a big discussion now about veganism for the planet, which maybe wasn't actually one of the huge discussions around veganism back when I went veggie and then vegan when I was a really small kid, because I was too young to really think about the environmental aspects. But the fact is, if we want to be doing things that are better for our planet, then one of the things we need to do is consume less meat and consume less dairy. That doesn't mean you necessarily have to go fully vegan, although I am here as a beacon of hope that it's really easy and it's really good and it makes you happy and you make nice vegan friends like Elle. But it's something that we need to talk about. We need to talk about. Oh, and Leanne, great, lots of vegan friends. Oh, and Derek. Okay. Okay, everyone's a vegan friend, but yeah, I mean, there's more we need to consider than just driving an electric car. We need to consider things like cutting our plastic use down. But food is one of the biggest things in the story when it comes to what we can do to combat climate change. And it's the most uncomfortable one to talk about, because people don't like being told what they should and shouldn't be eating, and people get very defensive. But it's a topic that we can't ignore, and we need to think about, and we need to find a way to talk about it in a kind of open way, non-judgmental. But yeah, try cooking a vegan meal. I recommend.
One other thing, did you mention there was some sustainable features of the racing car?
Yeah, so it's not on our first car at the moment, but as I said before, Dome is researching some parts of the chassis, and not all of them being made with more sustainable materials. So one of the material I think I've posted about a few times on social media is flax. And don't ask me how it works, but it's pretty cool. Certain parts of it we're now experimenting with. Hopefully in the future it will be possible to put it in production. But obviously when you're looking at different material, you have to test it. You have to look at things like weight and how that all works. I would love to in the future have bits of race cars made out of recycled bottles, recycled plastic, things like that. I mean, in practicality, you have to look at how it affects the weight, how it affects the integrity of the car, what's safe. But it's what our kind of green vision of ERA is transparency. So obviously motorsport is a luxury, and it's not necessary for our lives in order for us to exist in human beings, as much as it feels like it to me quite a lot of the time. It's a fact that should be said, but it's a great platform for innovation, and it's vital for innovation from not only for for things in the automotive industry, but things in the medical industry. There's a lot of cool innovation. So what our message is we're not 100% sustainable. Of course we're not. We're motorsport, so our cars might be electric, but we can't stop fans turning up to the track in their combustion cars. We can't stop race trucks being combustion, because at the moment the Tesla truck doesn't exist over here, and when it does, then we'll have electric race trucks. But we're willing to work with people that have solutions, and we're willing to start looking at how we can make changes to be better. And I think that's better than us saying, hey, we're 100% green, we're perfect, because that's not learning and making a change and having a journey. So a bit of a long answer there, but
long answers are good. Incidentally, I've only been vegan myself for about 3 months now. 4
welcome
months.
to the club.
Yeah, and it's been an eye-opening experience. And I've got to say, I love the burgers that you can get.
I know.
I can't even remember what brand they are, but they're some great stuff. Yeah, Plant Pioneers, really good stuff. Anyway, the next question is from Derek.
So this is a question for both Beth and Al. It came from EV Nick on YouTube. And if money was no object, and I know you've kind of said you're more interested in the second-hand market coming in and EVs. The question is, what would be your dream EV if money was no object? And that's for both Beth and Al.
I think I answered this on Nick's YouTube channel like 2 weeks ago.
Model X.
The Rimac, probably, because it's so cool. I haven't driven it, so I mean, the thing is, I really struggle to love a car until I've driven it. But the funny thing is, and I said this before, is I am actually driving my dream car at the moment. When I first saw a Model S, I think I saw it in a shopping mall in London. I think I saw it in Westfields, and I was like, oh my God, I love it. And now I am driving it. So I suppose I should just be grateful for that. But a Rimac would be pretty cool. Or Rimac. How do you say it? I'm not sure.
Rimac.
Thank you, Beth. And Elle?
For me, from the practical point in the moment is after seeing it in the flesh at Fully Charged live in Texas, it's going to be the Rivian for me, especially with the tow capacity and just generally being very, very cool car. But since we can't place a European order at the moment, I'll need to settle for the mug just now. But for a more fun, cute factor, I don't know. And I think you're aware of the Microlino, Beth. I just think it is just.
Oh my God, I love the Microlino. I have a dream that me and Elle are gonna get a Microlino. It has to be in grey though, and then we're gonna drive around Italy or something.
I don't know if we'll both fit in it.
We will. We're both the tall people of the EV world, but it's gonna be. We need to have a little Microlino road trip. If anybody from Microlino is watching this, we'll
sign us up.
Yeah, it'll be like two really tall girls in a really small car.
Well, there's the title for the road trip.
Absolutely.
Oh, could you imagine a Microlino race series?
They would roll, surely.
Yeah, well, you'd expect them to, wouldn't you? Bags of
They
fun.
roll around like eggs.
They used to race.
Down for that.
They used to race Renault 5s, and those things roll like anything. So,
Charlie, I think you were coming in there as well for the comment. I think, were you?
It was the fact that it's a chart sound at the end of Rimac, but we all say Rimac. But yeah.
So how do you pronounce it, Charlie?
Like rematch.
Rematch. Oh, I learned something. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's Mate's second name, so when he says it, it says rematch. But
we can blame Top Gear for getting it wrong.
Well, the problem I have is that I find that people in the UK pronounce it differently to the people over here that are speaking Dutch, and I've just lost all knowledge of what language is which anymore. So I don't know how to pronounce anything anymore.
We all knew what you meant.
Good.
Yeah, because I've never heard it pronounced Rimatch. It's everything I've ever heard it announced on any show has always been Rimac. So
yeah, I don't know. It's a mystery.
Learn something new every day.
It's like Lotus Avia, Avaya, Avija, Avija.
Oh God, yeah.
A Taycan.
It's a little bit like Hyundai, which can be pronounced in about 20 different ways.
Hyundai.
I think Martin Lee does do it about 3 different ways on his podcast.
Anyway, I have a question here, which is, are we ever going to be able in the future to have EVs with third-party bolt-on battery packs to allow extended range, e.g. a battery pack for the MG ZS EV that could be installed in the fuel tank void? Do you think that is possible?
I'm probably not the right person to answer this question. I
just give it a shot.
I mean, possibly. The thing is with battery packs and battery technology is it's probably the most important thing that's happening at the moment on a technological development side from EVs. So I think probably anything that you could imagine that could happen with batteries is going to be being explored, whether for the good or for the bad right now. But you know, it's such a new product and such a new tech that I think that there's a lot possible. But with the MG, I have absolutely no idea because I've driven the MG once. So
the guy did it with the G Wiz, didn't he? He built a supplement battery in a trailer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think anything's possible if you really want to make it happen. Whether you should, that's another matter.
Yeah, what Richard Morby's done with that G Wiz is really quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah,
I little solar panel on top.
I love that.
Right, okay, so the next question is from John.
It's not actually from me, it's from Gerard on YouTube. And he said, what's your thinking on hybrids? Enough said.
no, that's unfair. That's unfair. You know what? My reaction with that is just because I think just before I logged in to go on this call, I saw another one of those dreadful Toyota don't plug in self-charging monster thingy adverts, and it just like gets my blood boiling that they're lying to people so blatantly. So no, you know what? I've driven quite a few hybrids early on in my EV foray, so I think that there's a real valid place for them, especially for people that are, you know, struggling to make the switch. And I think actually the best hybrid that I would recommend to people right now is the i3 range extender, because I mean, you really are using nearly all electric with that car. When you're driving it, it's great. But, and to be honest, I don't think you need the range extender, but it's more of kind of some psychological buffer for people to know that it's there and it calms them. But I think the hybrids had its day. Personally, it's had an important part, but I don't think we need them that much anymore. And I don't want to hear everybody saying that they have to drive from like John O'Groats to Land's End every day, because it's not true. We drive like 30 miles a week in the UK maximum. So on average, obviously, I know lots of people drive more, but you know, we've got crazy range now. I don't know. I don't think we need hybrids.
With the choice of electric cars that's available now, there is an electric car to suit everybody's needs.
Exactly.
Admittedly, it won't suit everybody's budget, but prices are coming down.
I mean, better you buy a hybrid than you buy a diesel. Definitely don't buy a diesel right now. I mean, even if you don't care about anything, don't buy a diesel for your own funds. It's a complete waste of money. But yeah, I personally wouldn't recommend people really aiming for hybrids right now, unless they have a really strange niche case. And what's probably the most niche case is the fact that I quite regularly have to commute between the UK and Belgium, and not many people are commuting that far. And I do that in a 100% electric car, and it's secondhand. So, yeah.
Okay, over to Leanne.
Okay, so we have a question here from Senna007 UK on YouTube, and they've asked, what was it that converted you from a petrol head to a volt head?
Oh, I love the expression volt head. That's great. So I used to manage a series engineering design challenge called Formula Student in the UK, and it's where hundreds of universities from around the world came to Silverstone every year and built a little Formula race car and did all sorts of different crazy tests with them and kind of sold their design explain their budgets, and it was a points-based challenge for universities, and it's really, really crazy innovative. But they were doing stuff with electric cars right back before we were all talking about i3s and Teslas. And when I saw the electric cars come on track, the speed of them doing an acceleration run and the silence, and obviously in Formula Student, they're not obviously full-size cars. They're not actually suitable for wheel-to-wheel racing. It's all about the engineering. But actually, one of those cars, a vehicle from Zurich University, still has the world record for acceleration today, where it did 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 1.51 seconds. So that was just like a wow factor for me. I was like electric cars are performing better than combustion cars. And the silence thing kind of sold it to me as well. I liked the sound they make. I know that's a bit of a difficult topic for petrol heads to talk about, but for me, the sound of the EV was kind of startling but exciting. It was so futuristic.
Yeah, I think, well, for us, it was actually my brother that got us into an electric car. And then Neil got the Nissan Leaf. The Nissan Leaf now belongs to me, and Neil's got an MG ZS EV. Would never go back.
No. It's crazy. Like, have any of you guys ever had to suddenly drive a combustion car for some reason? Like, you know, like park someone's car for them, or help your mum with a car or something, and you're like, what is this? It's so bizarre.
So incredibly primitive.
Yeah, it's so
weird.
As well.
Yeah, I was a few weeks into owning the Leaf, and I had to drive a Golf diesel up to Rotherham and back over a couple of days. And I think because I'd only not long got into the Leaf full time, driving it wasn't so bad. But also before I owned the Leaf, I was going between driving a combustion car and an electric car backwards and forwards.
Yeah, it's just weird. I find it really strange now.
I think I would now.
Well, when we went to Cyprus, we had a rental car, and I kept on stalling it at the roundabouts. So
yeah, actually, Cyprus is a place that's really missing EVs. And as a Cypriot, I would really love to do an EV road trip in Cyprus.
I have a contact for you, Beth, over there. No, I think they've just taken away I was saying in the Robert Llewellyn chat that they've taken away the subsidies in Cyprus recently.
Have they? Oh, that's sad.
It's really sad, but I've got a contact over there, and hopefully, you know, we'll hear some more news as to whether they reintroduce them. Especially now, France and Germany have sort of just released the new sort of budgets on EVs, and you know, where people can save money.
I mean, I've only been in an EV, well, less than a year now, although I've been advocating them for a while. And the middle daughter left her car here because she was selling it, and I had to move it on and off the drive. And I was like, what does this thing do? And what's this other pedal for? And I couldn't get it. I was struggling to get it on and off the drive. It's amazing how quick.
There's almost the danger of the fact that you've forgotten that the acceleration isn't that instant and good acceleration that you have with the electric car. Almost you second guess yourself because you try and make maneuvers that would be fine in an EV, and it doesn't perform as quickly as you're expecting, and it's jarring.
Yeah, you put me on a roundabout now in a petrol car, I'd probably end up dead, because you get onto a roundabout and you think, oh, you wouldn't be able to make that gap in a petrol car or a diesel car, but you can easily make it in an electric. So it's just second nature now. You get out in a diesel and you think, oh my word, I'm going to cop it.
Incidentally, I did spot a Ioniq electric when we were in Cyprus, but only the one.
I've never seen an electric car in Cyprus. I like it. Obviously, it's something I should really do. I thought that last time I was there, I was like, I need to do something here. But then I thought I'd have to bring something on a ferry, and then that wouldn't be very environmentally friendly either. And yeah, no. Now you've reminded me that I was thinking about doing that.
That's something I would love to do. I did grow up in Cyprus, so it's my second home. So yeah, I would love to take an electric car over there. But as you say, it's the whole ferry thing. Yeah.
Oh, we need to make this happen. Also, island living is so perfect for EV. It's not, Cyprus is not huge. Okay. Now I'm thinking about it. You've got ideas in my head.
Okay, here we go. EMV 200 camper van road trip around Cyprus.
Oh my God, yes. Although around Cyprus would be tricky.
Well, not
yes, certain borders.
Yeah, like around south of Cyprus. Yes.
excellent. Right. So the
Up
next
the Troodos
question.
Mountains.
Oh yes, yeah, please.
Okay, over to Elle.
So when we get a little bit more normality and when the cup can hit the circuit, how would we be able to follow and watch the cup if we're not able to attend one of the races in person?
Okay, so the cup is the STEM, the school project, which the races for that happen at the end of the year. But with the championship, the Formula car, we're currently now that motorsport is starting to tentatively set dates for things, we're starting to look at it a little bit. But obviously, big series out there, Formula One, etc., have all changed their calendars, and it's a bit of a juggling act. As a smaller series, we need to wait and see what things are going to be in place before we can commit and say 100% this is when we're going to be racing. And obviously, we were also looking at exploring a winter series in some other countries at the beginning of next year. But again, it's a little bit too difficult to say what can happen and what's safe to make assumptions with track-wise and what motorsport is going to look like, because obviously we're talking about a lot of series talking about having no fans in place, no spectators. So it's just a difficult situation for motorsport and many other industries right now. But we're hoping that we can at least do some things to show on video reasonably soon, that I'm quite excited about. So hopefully we'll be at least entertaining you with some race car action if it's not a racing this year.
Nice one.
Okay, over to Derek.
So sometimes we talk about EVs being zero emission, but now we're obviously getting a better understanding about the tire pollutants and all that kind of stuff. What's your thoughts on that and just the awareness of how much pollution tires cause as well?
Anybody in motorsport probably will tell you that we're all pretty aware of the pollution of tires. I mean, when I first started working in motorsport, I used to get dreadful headaches and I used to be really, really ill. Obviously, this was combustion car motorsport. But because it was quite a male-dominated industry and there's a kind of certain way that people act, I used to just pretend it was all fine and go home and feel quite poorly. Obviously, working with electric motorsport, that doesn't exist. And I hate to say it, I also think my body got a bit used to it, which is not a nice thought either, because it would always be the first race weekend of the year. I would go home and be like trashed for a week and then it would go away. But it's monumentally better. But of course, you still smell the tires, so you're acutely aware of it. In terms of what I think could be a solution, I'm not sure, because there's really a lot of money and investment in tire exploration and tire innovation. So I think that there's probably going to be a lot of things that come out with materials and build and composition of tires that may be able to combat that. And I've read some articles recently about different things. And I'm not by any stretch a tire expert or tire engineer to make any comment. But again, it's just about innovation. I think motorsport is probably a really great place where we can explore this, because everybody knows that tires are a big part of motorsport and strategy. So maybe it's something that we can even look at some point. We're partnered with Michelin for our tires, so they're obviously at the forefront of a lot of really exciting things within tire exploration. Maybe there's more materials out there that will be explored. And obviously, there's also the push towards public transport as well. I always think it's really important. And obviously, yourself, you've talked about how you can exist without a car. And we're all here because we're car fans. But it's also important to think about environmental impact where we cannot use cars as well. So,
thank you.
Okay, we have a question here from John.
Yeah, it's actually from James Ellis Brown on YouTube, and he'd like to ask you, what's the fastest you've ever driven?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it was furthest.
Furthest? I was going to say.
Furthest.
It's now disappeared.
Oh, the furthest. Well, the fastest, I don't know. It would obviously be on track, because I don't go around breaking speed limits. Although I have driven on areas of road in Australia and in Germany where there are no speed limits. Specifically in the middle of Australia, you can go quite fast if you want to, where there's a small area on the Stuart Highway where you can drive at no limits. So if that was the question, then I'm not sure, but probably quite fast. In terms of furthest, the Nordkap trip was 10,000 kilometers. So that's probably the furthest I've done without taking break. I mean, obviously I took breaks, but without taking kind of a decent sized break. Yeah, 10,000 kilometers. I can do more. I'll go to Vladivostok. That's got to be far away. I'll drive to Japan.
Sounds like you're on a mission now.
I know, you shouldn't put these ideas in my head. I haven't done anything like this for a while because I've been so busy working on various motorsport things, but like the ideas come into my head. But then it's difficult because EVs are really quite good now, so it's not that much of a challenge to do some of the stuff that I've done in the past and some of the things that lots of us have done in the past. Now most people can go and do them, so the stakes get higher and higher. And
I think once you've done something and you've set a goal, there's no point going shorter or slower.
No.
You've got to go further or faster. I mean, Chris Ramsey has exactly the same issue. What do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. The 80-day race, that would be fun. 80 days around the world by a great friend of mine, Frank Manders, is the CEO of that. That would be really cool. But yeah, it's time. The time, like these trips get longer and longer and the time takes more and more time, and I actually have to do some work and things at some point in my life. So it's difficult, but I guess at the moment the records and interesting things I'm looking to set are track-based rather than road car based. But if there is an opportunity for me to do something fun in a road car that shows that EVs are accessible, then I'd definitely be down with doing that.
Okay, right. So we have a question here from Ross McMillan on YouTube. So having not watched any e-racing series before, how is charging handled for the races? Does the track have to support recharging, or do the teams bring their own battery packs along? How does that work?
Well, it's actually different depending on the circuits. Depending on what provisions they've got, what their power looks like. So it's a little bit complicated, but as the race organizers, the charging is all managed through us. We don't just let teams go and charge their cars on a circuit whenever they like, because it needs to be regulated for safety reasons and for sporting reasons. So with ERA, they get to charge obviously before they do a practice session, and they get to charge before they do quali. They get given charging slots where they come and they're supervised by our specialist electric vehicle safety team. Then they have to do 2 qualifying sessions back to back without charging. So 2 15-minute quali sessions back to back with no charging between, which means they have to plan their qualis a little bit tactically. They can't run easily at full power for all of that quali time without really rinsing their battery. So they need to think about that. And then obviously they get to charge again before each race. But yeah, as I said before, it's got to be handled by us and working with the circuit. If the circuits are looking at maybe providing chargers long term because they see it as being something worth investing in, which I would push them to do, because I think electric racing is a real great way for circuits to deal with things like noise complaints, etc. Not to mention that obviously these are the future. Then they can look at putting infrastructure in, but we're also capable of bringing our own mobile infrastructure to the circuits, which is not generator tanks, or are they called tanks? But it's not generators.
Excellent. Okay, now over to Elle.
So you're based in Belgium at the moment, Beth. So you've been on lockdown even longer than we have. I'm not sure what stage you guys are at things lifting, but what's the first thing you'd like to do when lockdown lifts completely?
Go to like a really good live music pub and sit in the garden. I really miss that. But actually, a pub garden is really a British thing. Here it's sitting on the terrace, and I'm not sure that we should all suddenly flock to sitting on the terraces at the end of this. I can't wait to be back at circuits again. my job is to do with motorsports and racing, so I'm missing it badly. We've been in lockdown, I think 3 weeks before the UK started, so it's been a really long time, and I haven't managed to come back to the UK at all and see my mom and see my dogs, and it's been really hard not being able to come back, and I still don't know when I can come back, because obviously we're at different stages in terms of numbers of cases right now. Belgium's a lot less now than the UK, so I think there's a lot of quarantine in place in transit between Belgium and the UK, and I don't know how I can, at the moment our borders are shut, so I can't easily drive out of Belgium, and if I did, I can't come back. So yeah, I want to come home to the UK for a little bit and see people, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's at least 2 weeks once you're here that you've got to stay, and that's in quarantine the whole time as well. So
yeah, it's been really tough, because I mean, those of you that follow me on social media, I travel a lot. I try to travel as sustainably as possible. I point out it's difficult, but my job brings me to a lot of places. I drive all over Europe. I don't fly in Europe, and I drive frequently between the UK and Belgium. And I've just not been back for months and months now, and I miss it. I miss you guys.
We all miss you too.
No.
And with that, we've been on the air now for an hour, so I think we're going to bring it to an end now. I just want to say a massive thank you on behalf of all of the clubs of the Nexus to Beth for being our guest today. You've been amazing. So thank you very, very much. And thank you for putting up with all my silly music questions as well.
Oh, it's fine. I like them.
Okay, so the next one of these is going to be in about 3 weeks' time, and it is with the great Chris Ramsey from Plug-in Adventures. So that should be very exciting. So there will be details online over the next coming days. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you very much for watching.
thank you.
Bye.
Right, excellent.